Hi, we're back with our fourth segment now. We're going to talk about what's going on when you really get into the meat of the unit. We talked about how you engaged the students and introduced it, and then how you began with teaching annotation and getting them started reading and close reading strategies. Now you're into the book and you've got to keep them engaged.
Right.
And hit all those other little standards as you're going along. So tell me a little bit about, well, we talked about how you did your vocabulary study and how you used authentic text to teach your language standards. Let's talk about some of the activities you did in the middle of the book. How did you get all that text read?
Well, one of the things that we did sometimes, just like we're human, so are the kids. You don't want to always just sit and read the novel quietly, chapter by chapter. Sometimes even going through people taking turns to do sort of that round robin reading can be mundane. I'm a middle school teacher, kids like to talk. Why not give them something to talk about?
Absolutely.
And so one of the things that I tried to stop and do was something that was more like a jigsaw, having them to become an expert in a certain chapter, but then being able to take it to other groups and have them to understand what happened in their particular chapter and just sort of do some sharing. But it wasn't simply about summarizing the chapter. I wanted them to also still have that basis for understanding some other literary content.
Evaluate,
right. So with them being able to analyze the text and keeping that in, I came up with an activity that in the end, when they finished the chapter, that they could work on as a group. Okay. And one of those things was as they finished, they had to do what's similar that I have as an example up here. They had to look at their chapter, not just for summary's sake, you can see that they have a group summary here, but they also had to determine the flashbacks that might have occurred in that context, the foreshadowing that they might be able to see what is going to happen next. So looking at terms more than just the make a prediction, looking at newer terms when we're talking about foreshadowing.
And you know what, I'll just interrupt for a second, this is a great example of, is that in GPS we had pages and pages and pages of standards, and it would be A, B, C, D, all the elements. Common Core really gives much more agency to the teacher, and it'll say teach literary terms, or teach the appropriate tier 2 or 3 vocabulary. And you didn't even blink at that. You said, yes, well, I'm going to do what's appropriate to this book. It has flashback, it has foreshadowing,
right.
and these are the terms that when you looked at those organic opportunities to teach what was in this book, without it being listed in a laundry list for you,
right.
You had the power as the teacher to see what was in the authentic text and what you wanted to teach. So as you're getting into the text of the book, the kids are starting to learn to talk about it
right.
in 6th grade in more sophisticated terms about this is not just something that is ironic, or is something you taught them the word for what all these things mean, the actual literary term for them, and then they could in turn use that in their evaluations. So,
right.
And then they have the lots of different ways to show their learning with the performance styles too. You got some great artists.
Right,
in there.
like I do, and that helps with the differentiation piece as well, because every student can't do the same level or quality of work when you're asking for something specific. So that student who may be the reluctant writer or even the reluctant reader, because now you put me in a group situation, I'm comfortable with my peers, I can listen to someone else sort of analyze and explain it. It helps to give me a better understanding. It gives them a little more, it gives them sort of an authentic opportunity as well.
And that's what the speaking and listening standards are about.
Right.
Because you have some kids who are terribly shy, and these are life skills, like we said, college and career ready, to be able to be in a group and be an active member of the group, and to not just be too shy to speak or to be so overpowering that you don't give others a chance to speak. That's a life skill.
Right.
So that's important in your discussion, and the Jigsaw really facilitates that.
And it did. I mean, giving them the opportunity, like with this group, they even decided, you know what, I can see the conflict here. You know, maybe I didn't ask them to include that, but the fact that they could see, this is appropriate to put this here as well. I can see that there was a Brian versus nature piece or whatever it was. And so letting them sort of take it and go. And there were some chapters maybe even where they were able to say, Ms. Christian, we don't see where the author used figurative language here. Looking at a sentence to really analyze it and determine, is this really a simile? Is this really onomatopoeia? Is he making a comparison, or is it literal? And so this sort of gave them an opportunity to do that as well.
So you're giving them a lot of the responsibility for their own learning, which is great. Right. And you did some activities with going outdoors or journaling? Or?
We did. Journaling is still important, but I think it's very important for us to choose the type of journal that we use. We still want to do things that are very personal to them and how they feel, but how do I really take what I'm doing in the text and really begin to form some type of writing piece from that? That if I had to create an essay, can I go back to my notebook and reference things that I've journaled, things that I've blogged even, because that was something that we've done as well.
I wanted to talk about that. With we talked about the speaking and listening standards and the discussion piece, because when we're talking about what you're doing instructionally in the middle of the book, a lot of that's going to be discussion. I was asking you how the kids talked in the classroom, and you reminded me, but they like to discuss in digital platforms, which is an important part of the standards as well.
Right.
So I find, too, they can be a little bit more candid in the way you said it sometimes.
Yes.
Too candid.
Yes. We did do sort of a field trip outside because there's a wooded area behind the school near my classroom. And so it gave them an opportunity to engage in that and be able to see what it really could be like, as well as the fact that we're sort of close to the airport, and to be able to watch the planes fly over. And what does it really mean when we're talking about a plane literally crashing from the sky? But then taking that as a homework piece to be able to respond to the text in a form of a blog. Now, of course, it's technology. You still have to be careful. In blogging, there were pieces maybe people responded and I just removed because it wasn't educationally sound, so to speak. But for the most part, not only did I respond to them, but their peers also were able to respond to them, and you saw conversations generated via the blogs.
That's excellent, and it's so genuine and authentic. And what I'm thinking is that it removes that entire, so much when I taught middle school, I remember watching out for, the kids will always find a way to end run you. They had to find something to copy or some shortcut to do something, or to take someone else from another period and I'll do what his response was. On the blog, you remove all of that because that's a platform that they're familiar with, but it's about their own creative expression, and there's no need, nobody wants to go and copy something else or find a response from somewhere else. It's very authentic. They want to give you their own response. So I love that about the digital platforms.
Yeah.
It feels like social media.
And it is like social media.
That's great. So there are a lot of different strategies that you use to keep the kids engaged through the middle of this process and keep them on task. In our next video, we're going to talk about, now you've gotten them engaged in the reading, they know how to close read, they know how to take notes, all their notes and resources are in one place. They're getting through the text with maybe listening to a little bit on audiobook, listening to you read with expression, reading to each other and to themselves. Now we're going to want some kind of performance product at the end of this, a summative assessment. So in the next video, we're going to talk about that.